Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. I remember my first afternoon in Jerusalem. We were actually on our own until the morning, so I wandered downtown to the marketplace, and there were vendors selling all manner of goods and vegetables and fruits. I looked at everything, but I took only one picture. Just at the entrance to the marketplace, there was a sign advertising money changers. I had to think of Jesus cleansing the temple when I saw that sign there in Jerusalem. This week, our focus is on the emotions Jesus showed and which are recorded in the Gospels. It's an interesting thing that the one scene in the earthly life of Jesus, when most of us picture Jesus as angry, may have been a time when he actually wasn't. If I were to ask you to name a time in the Gospels when Jesus was angry, you might pause for a moment because we don't often think of Jesus being angry. But after you thought about it, my bet would be that your answer would involve Jesus cleansing the temple by overturning the tables and casting out the money changers. You see, it wasn't a simple arrangement like that money changer in Jerusalem who was offering to change my dollars to shekels. The temple itself had a special currency for use only in the temple. So if you needed to purchase an animal to make a sacrifice, you couldn't use regular money that you had brought with you. First, you had to change your money for that special temple currency, and the money changers took their cut before you could purchase the animal from the other vendors who also made a profit. I'm reminded of advertisements for businesses that have a fish or a cross on it to indicate that the owner of the business is a Christian. Now, they may be very sincere about their faith, and they have that symbol included in order to express that. But frankly, I'm always a little uncomfortable when I see it. It looks like they are using their faith in order to entice more business. It looks like they are using God in order to make a profit. Well, that's what was happening in the temple too. These money changers and animal vendors were preying on the needs of people to worship and offer sacrifice. And while those folks were needed in one way, in order to facilitate people being able to worship, it had become something of a racket. It wasn't about worship. It was about making money. What is fascinating is that the gospel writers who tell this story don't mention anger as something Jesus was feeling. Rather, they indicate that it was zeal for the house of the Lord that motivated his actions. Jesus was so caught up in what the temple should be that he drove out all that was making it less than that. While the vendors and money changers probably thought Jesus was acting in anger, in truth, he was acting out of love for God. There are, however, a couple of times in the Gospels when they do describe Jesus as angry. The first one was when a man with a withered hand was in the synagogue on the Sabbath. The religious leaders of the day thought that the Sabbath rules about no work being done were the most important, but Jesus thought that restoring the man to health and wholeness was the primary need at that time. Jesus called the man front and center, and then asked the religious leaders whether it was right to follow the rules or to do good on the Sabbath. When they didn't answer, Jesus looked around at them in anger. I think Jesus was angry at their cold-hearted close-mindedness that led them to focus exclusively on a blanket rule instead of the profound need for healing of the man before them. I think Jesus was angry because their pious religiosity was so far away from what God truly wants. I think Jesus was angry because ignoring a brother or sister in need, even for a day, is far from the kingdom of God. It's a hard story for us because so often we get so caught up in piety and religious rules and sanctimony and complacency about our sisters and brothers in need. Jesus knew God's kingdom was open and welcoming to everyone. It seems that, sorry, I made a mistake here on the thing, on the my text. Let's get back to where I need to go. There. The other time when Jesus is described as angry is found in Mark 10. Mark tells it like this. People were bringing little children to him in order that he might touch them, and the disciples spoke sternly to them. But when Jesus saw this, he was indignant and said to them, "Let the little children come to me, and do not stop them, for it is to such as these that the kingdom of God belongs. Truly I tell you, whoever does not receive the kingdom of God as a little child will never enter it." And he took them up in his arms, laid his hands on them, and blessed them. Now here's the thing. It seems that both times the Gospels describe Jesus as angry, he was angry on behalf of someone else. He was angry because someone was being ignored or excluded. First, the man with the withered hand, and then the smallest and least powerful in society, the children. Jesus knew that God's kingdom was open and welcoming to everyone. And when that didn't happen, it made him angry. When my children were little, they never worried about supper that day. Oh, they might wonder what we were going to have, but they never wondered if they were going to have supper. Supper would be provided. That was a given in our home. I think that when Jesus says that we need to receive the kingdom of God like a child, I think it's that kind of open, simple trust my children had about supper. That's how we're supposed to trust in God to care for us. I wonder if our sophisticated self-reliance sometimes makes God angry. Sorry, run into another little problem here. Oh, come on. There we go. What's the good news in all of this? The good news is that Jesus looks at us and says, "Let the children come. All of you come. You are invited and welcome in my arms." Anger is replaced by love. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.